Oh lord, this video is gonna get me cancelled. But you know what? If you don't risk anything, you don't win anything. And I wanted to talk about the latest trend that's been plaguing the internet, which is the race swapping of characters. Beware that no matter what I say in this video, there's not a single person who's going to be satisfied with my take. While some find it as a conversation opportunity to exchange ideas, there's always going to be the gooners who will make it about themselves and make sure that everyone's good time is ruined somehow. So, I'd like you to take this video as just a conversation starter and not a threat to human rights, as it's not the intention, the content, or the purpose. But without digressing any longer, let's begin. Race swapping. Making a character from a certain race or ethnicity and turn it into a different one. Just like that, the concept doesn't seem so complicated. However, it's because of the way social media, mainly Twitter, deals with race issues that a lot of the times something as simple as a drawing or an executive decision from the entertainment industry can lead to a Trojan war. People hating on whites, people hating on blacks, people hating on basically everyone, without any sort of middle ground to stand on or even a third position for people to look at this issue objectively. When you put it on paper, figuratively and literally speaking, the idea of imagining a character with a different race from the one that was intended for could spark a nice and even interesting conversation. Since it's not conditioning through coercion the original view of the artist who carefully designed the original character, the mere presentation of a character with different background doesn't seem to do any harm whatsoever. We have seen this being implemented in media where the concept of the multiverse exists, from characters being born in different bodies, different realities, or different circumstances. Create an appealing narrative for a new scenario, a sort of what if you'd like. Now, the issue starts when this conversation is derived from a different point of view, in which the audience suddenly decide that only certain characters can be presented in a different way. Such is the case of characters where they are born with a darker skin tone and one artist decides to reimagine that same character with a lighter shade. And I mean that literally, as the backlash for presenting a character in a slightly lighter shade has sparked a large number of enraged users. Now, I may not be an artist myself and I may not be an expert in Pantone, but from what I could see in the real world, isn't skin shown with different shades depending on the kind of light that's pointed at you? Or even cameras where they don't really process the correct skin tone, making you look even brighter, darker, or duller than you actually are. I wanted to tackle this first because it seems like a smooth transition to the bigger problem ahead, which is the absolute contrast between one design and another. While I understand that you may not like or may have your opinion from an artistic level regarding how a design could be done better with shading, sketching, or whatever, making a huge fuss over using a slightly lighter tone seems condescending, unnecessarily aggressive, and, in my humble opinion, quite pathetic if you ask me. Although nobody asked but paid no attention to that. So why are people so obsessed with this minuscule change? Why are people so eager in pointing out these minuscule changes that at best could be considered simple errors if we give them the benefit of the doubt? Well, I do understand it from a perspective that's completely foreign to me, and that is the black representation in media. For many years, the black community has indeed been either misrepresented or poorly represented due to the segregation laws and social standards from the 19th and 20th century. Even to this day, we find ourselves seeing misrepresentation of such communities here and there. Despite that, it would be a crime to assume that humanity hasn't improved on these stakes as years went by and managed to put just a tiny bit more effort into making a community feel properly represented in modern media. Not only do we have black superheroes, scholars, athletes, and more, we've managed to be socially conscious of the mistakes from the past and managed to push the boundaries when it comes to expressing new ideas with black protagonists, writers, directors, and more. So, the idea of having a character not being represented with the right ethnic background accordingly could lead to suspicion of attempting to submerge, hide, or even destroy their culture. That's my reasoning, at least from what I've been able to understand after talking to so many people from the black community interested in this issue. But then, I go back to my first point. Isn't skin supposed to look different when light strikes at a different intensity? Don't get me wrong, I'm no biologist and I am not 100% sure how melamine works in the human body, but I can say for certain that I've seen it with my own eyes and you've seen it as well. So, while there is one valid point to consider, it's also imperative to assume that the other side is right too. Not being given the benefit of the doubt and assuming that it was intentional does more harm than good at this point, as if certain set of rules were mandatory with a condition of punishment. Without this possibility of trial and error, an artist isn't going to improve in the near or far future, and harassing or trying to cancel this artist sounds pretty pathetic in my opinion. Leave race aside, from a human perspective, which is what unites us all, it's laughable at this point. But then there's the other topic at hand, which leads to the most polarizing kind of discussion through social media, which is the absolute race swap of a character. Yes, you've seen it, I've seen it, everyone gets to see it. We've seen multiple instances of characters being swapped from their original race to other races, and let's address the elephant in the room, the main race being white to black. Now, as I mentioned before, I normally wouldn't have any problem with seeing a different concept or design for a character. It allows us to flower our imagination with the possibilities of what a character would look like in that scenario, and that would be fine by me. The problem is when the backlash starts if there's a character being swapped to another race while originally being black mostly. And listen, I get it. It erases the original vision of the character and touches the point of neglecting the history of black people being either underrepresented or misrepresented in media. There's also the case of whitewashed characters who were supposed to be of certain ethnicity but ended up being turned into white characters. What we're forgetting though is the fact that these swaps were not well received either back then. But here's the kicker of the situation. We are living in the year 2024, almost 2025. Media has changed, people have changed, and we are right now at the pinnacle of innovation when it comes to creativity. Now, everyone can share their art and work online, only to be admired, despised, loved, or hated on the internet. It's no longer a secluded place where only a selective group of people can choose which will be seen or not. Sure, reaching the audience is hard, but the possibilities are there. Hell, even I'm doing my part by making videos too. Some are very successful while others aren't. And I've got no restrictions on what I want to talk about. You can actually create new characters from any race, religion, country, sexuality, and share it with the world. You can get backlash for deliberate choices, of course. But that isn't enough to stop you from doing what you love. So it baffles me that with all this freedom we got to create and imagine, the web is policing content in such a ridiculous manner, monopolizing the scope of creativity, and that's paltry at best. If one idea is acceptable, then so is the opposite. We can't just have one but not the other at this point. It seems that people are still not ready to have such conversations and are more eager into screaming at each other. Maybe that, or they enjoy the drama more than they'd like to admit. But the last part I wanted to talk about is the race swap in major productions. It's nothing new that Hollywood and its biggest industries try to adhere to the new terms of inclusivity by swapping the race of certain renowned characters, whether it is for TV shows or movies, all in the name of inclusivity. While it is true that the majority of these characters were created in an era where underrepresented minorities were not present as much as the common white person, there's also the other side of the spectrum where black characters were created originally to be black. And my take on that, I do not support this tactic from Hollywood, but not for the reasons you might think. In fact, it's for the reason that I rarely see people talking about nowadays. It feels lazy. You heard me. It feels like an absolute tokenization of the cause. Rather than coming up with new characters that happen to be black, which let me tell you there are a lot out there, they decide that the best course of action is taking a character that has a completely different ethnicity and make them black instead. Majority of these characters are actually redhead, coincidentally, which begs the question, weren't the Celts also the ones who suffered the most oppression in Europe besides the Slavs? What is Hollywood trying to do here? Erase redheads from history? That's pure speculation from my end, of course, but as a media creator and enjoyer myself, I would prefer to see new faces on the field. Coco from Disney was brilliant in every possible way. Parasite was widely successful and praised, and even though I thought it was an okay movie, Black Panther had a massive explosion of praises all over the world. I will keep on saying though that Blade was the first black superhero to dominate cinemas, not Black Panther, but I digress. This take from Hollywood not only feels belittling, but also like an insult to other IPs that are waiting to have the approval to be taken to the small or big screen. One of my favorite, if not my favorite, comic book characters is Simmons, aka Spawn. And hey, I'm not using a tokenizing example here. I literally still have the original comics that were sold in the 90s, so I'm genuinely eager to see a proper adaptation of Spawn. Simmons as Spawn is not only an amazing black protagonist who took the world by surprise, it's also one of the few comic books alongside Hellboy that dominates the comic book market without belonging to Marvel or DC. You literally have a goldmine here, but you prefer to go for the other route that people criticize so much. I'm genuinely concerned at this point of the industry becoming so numb that they are not looking at the bigger picture, or if they are using the black community as a catalyst for drama to give free publicity to a product. But hey, that's my take at least. I know that there's no way there won't be people who got offended by what I said, but rather than allowing myself to be taken by my emotions, I tried to see this from a very impartial point of view by tackling the issue of what it is and not trying to conform anyone. What do you think though? Do you agree with my take, or is there somewhere along the lines that you would like to correct me? I'm truly eager to read your comments because this is a topic in which I can't say I am right or wrong. I'm just presenting my take. If there's any way to elaborate on that, I'm more than gladly to be open for debate and see where this takes us. Also, subscribe to my channel if you want to support me. Believe it or not, by doing this, you're doing more than you can imagine. This has been Juano, and thank you for watching.